Kelsey Plum blows the lid off the joint, letting us all in on a small secret.
Caitlin Clark didn't just show up, she took over. In a recent piece of viral footage that sent WNBA fans into a frenzy, Clark went head-to-head with veteran star Kelsey Plum, and what happened next stunned everyone watching. The rookie sensation didn't just hold her own against one of the league's loudest and most confident players, she embarrassed her. In just seconds of gameplay, Clark flipped the narrative that she was too young, too soft, or too hyped. What looked like a routine possession turned into a highlight reel moment that exposed Plum's defense, stunned the Aces bench, and made even Clark's critics pause. But this moment wasn't just about one crossover or step-back shot. It was about something bigger, because when a rookie humiliates an all-star on national television, it shakes the league. And this was the kind of humiliation that doesn't just go viral, it leaves a mark. It started like any other possession. Caitlin Clark dribbled up the court with calm control, eyes scanning, defenders shifting. Kelsey Plum, known for her aggressive perimeter defense, squared up, arms wide, ready to shut Clark down.
You have sore losers and you have sore winners, and Kelsey Plum is both.
Commentators leaned in, fans held their breath. What no one expected was that Clark would turn this ordinary play into the most viral clip of the week. In a few sharp seconds, Clark unleashed a combination of skill, speed, and court vision that completely dismantled Plum. She faked left, then, with a quick hesitation and a deadly crossover, sent Plum lunging the wrong direction. The crowd gasped. Even before Plum recovered, Clark stepped back behind the arc and launched a three-pointer that splashed through the net. No rim, no chance to contest. Just pure humiliation delivered in front of thousands in the arena and millions more online. Camera cut immediately to Plum's face, and you could see it. The frustration, the disbelief. She had just been cooked by a rookie. A rookie she and many others had subtly or not so subtly questioned in the weeks leading up to this game. The reaction was immediate. Social media exploded. The clip hit X, TikTok, and Instagram within minutes, racking up views in the millions. Analysts rewound it over and over, breaking down every movement, every micro decision that led to the collapse of Plum's defense. One ESPN analyst even called it the single most humiliating defensive moment of Plum's career. Harsh, maybe, but the tape didn't lie. But the real story wasn't just the play itself, it was the narrative it flipped. For weeks, certain WNBA veterans, Plum included, had been sending subtle messages, interviews, post-game comments, and social posts that hinted at the idea that Clark hadn't earned her stripes yet, that she was getting too much attention, too many accolades, without proving herself at the pro level. And while Clark never fired back with words, her performance said everything that needed to be said. This moment on the court wasn't just flashy, it was symbolic. It was Clark seizing control of her own story, not through drama, not through interviews, but through dominance in the one place that matters most, between the lines. And the way she did it, so effortlessly, so cold-blooded, shifted the tone of the entire conversation. For Kelsey Plum, this was more than just one bad defensive play. It became a meme, a trending topic, and a clip that will likely follow her for the rest of the season. And for Caitlin Clark, it was something else entirely. It was her arrival, not just as a promising rookie, but as a legitimate problem for every veteran who thought they could break her. And the timing of this moment, it couldn't have been worse for Plum, because just days earlier, she made comments that now look like foreshadowing of her own downfall. And what Clark did next would make the situation even worse. Just days before Caitlin Clark made headlines for embarrassing Kelsey Plum on the court, Plum was already making waves of her own, but not the good kind. In a press conference that many brushed off as typical veteran commentary, Plum delivered what felt like a veiled shot at the league's new golden girl. She didn't name names, but the message was loud and clear. Plum spoke about how some players are handed media attention before they've actually earned it, and how respect in this league doesn't come from headlines, it comes from the grind. On the surface, it sounded like a call for humility, a reminder to rookies to stay grounded. But when you looked at the timing and the tone, it was hard not to hear Caitlin Clark's name between the lines, and fans picked up on it instantly. Social media lit up with debates. Was Plum throwing shade at Clark? Was it fair? Was it jealousy? Some fans defended Plum, saying she was just protecting the integrity of the league. Others slammed her for gatekeeping and underestimating a rookie who'd already proven herself more than most first-year players ever had. The irony. Clark had stayed silent through it all. No interviews, no quotes, no drama, just focused basketball. But that's what made what happened next so brutal. Because when Clark finally faced off with Plum, she didn't just play Welsh, she made a statement. And suddenly, Plum's words from earlier that week looked like a prelude to her own embarrassment. Now those comments are resurfacing everywhere. Fans are clipping them together with the viral highlight. News sites are quoting her words side by side. With screenshots of her defensive stumble, it's become a full-blown narrative. The veteran who talked tough and got humbled. The moment where confidence became cockiness sand, a rookie made her pay for it. Even WNBA insiders are quietly acknowledging what many fans are saying out loud. Plum may have underestimated Clark, and that underestimation didn't just age poorly, turned into a PR nightmare. Instead of being the established star mentoring the next generation, she now looks like the gatekeeper who got torched by the very player she dismissed. What's more, this wasn't even the first time Plum stirred the pot. Throughout the season, she's taken subtle shots at media coverage and fan attention, shifting toward new talent. But this time, the backlash wasn't subtle. The internet dragged her, teammates looked uncomfortable, and league analysts couldn't ignore it anymore. And as the noise got louder, the pressure started to mount not just on Plum, but on the entire Aces squad. Because what happened during that game didn't just rattle one player. It exposed a bigger issue that the defending champs didn't see coming, and it was about to get worse. While the media obsessed over Kelsey Plum's comments and fans debated the tension online, Caitlin Clark stayed silent. Not a single interview, no cryptic posts, no reactions. She didn't need to clap back with words, she planned to answer on the court. And when the moment finally arrived, she delivered a performance that was louder than any quote or headline. From the opening whistle, Clark played like she had something to prove, but not in a frantic, desperate way. Her energy was calm, controlled, and lethal. She wasn't trying to force plays or draw attention. Instead, she simply picked apart the Aces with methodical precision. Every pass had purpose. Every shot had timing. And when Plum guarded her, Clark's instincts shifted into another gear. Observers later noted that Clark seemed to hunt Plum throughout the game, not in a vindictive way, but in a strategic, unshakable rhythm. She waited for switches, called for isolations, and put Plum in uncomfortable positions again and again. It was clear she'd studied Plum's defense. She knew the gaps, the hesitation points, the moments of overcommitment, and she exploited them. The highlight that went Virula crossover into a step-back three that left Plum grasping at Airwas, just the flashiest moment. But throughout the game, Clark kept delivering smaller surgical strikes, a no-look bounce pass that split to defenders, a hesitation dribble that drew a double team, freeing up her teammate for an easy layup, a chase-down block in transition that fired up the crowd. These weren't just rookie highlights, these were leadership plays. It was Clark's poise that made the performance so devastating. She didn't celebrate wildly, she didn't stare anyone down. She didn't talk trash, she hit the shot, turned, and jogged back to defense. Cool, composed, focused. It was the kind of demeanor that made her dominance even harder, too. Ignore because she wasn't trying to show Plum up. She was just better, and that, perhaps, was the most painful part for Plum and her camp. This wasn't a heated rivalry or a lucky play. It was the cold reality of a generational talent making her mark in real time. Clark didn't need the spotlight handed to her. She took it. Not with PR campaigns or social media hype, but with the kind of on-court performance that leaves no room for doubt. After the game, reporters swarmed both locker rooms. Clark, as usual, downplayed the drama. "It's just basketball," she said, deflecting attention from the Plum narrative. But fans weren't buying the modesty. They knew what they had just witnessed. The storyline had shifted. It wasn't just about a rookie making noise. It was about a veteran being outclassed. And while Clark stayed humble in her interviews, the league was already buzzing behind the scenes. Because when you combine that kind of skill with that level of control, you don't just make headlines, you make history. and the league was about to feel the ripple effects. For the past 2 seasons, the Las Vegas Aces have been the undisputed queens of the WNBA. Stacked with all-stars led by vocal leaders like Kelsey, Plum, and A'ja Wilson, and coached by a championship-caliber staff, they were the team everyone feared, confident, dominant, unshakable. But in the wake of Caitlin Clark's viral moment and the resulting fallout, cracks in that invincibility began to show, and fast. What made the humiliation so impactful wasn't just that Clark embarrassed Plum, it was that she did it against the Aces, the league's defending champions. In a game where Vegas was supposed to send a message, this was meant to be a teaching moment for the rookie, a reminder of who runs the league. Instead, it became a turning point, a moment when the league saw that even the mighty Aces could be exposed. After the game, cameras captured the unease. Plum, visibly frustrated, sat stone-faced in the post-game press conference. Her usual fire was replaced by clipped answers. Meanwhile, Coach Becky Hammon, usually quick to praise her veterans, was notably tight-lipped about the defensive lapses. When pressed on the Clark highlight, she dismissed it as one possession and said, "We'll clean that up." But the body language told another story. Behind closed doors, the tension was worse. League insiders began leaking reports that the locker room felt tight and that veteran players were frustrated not just by Clark's performance, but by the media frenzy that followed. What should have been a routine midseason game had turned into a PR mess and a distraction for the team. And for the first time, the Aces didn't look like they were having fun. Opposing teams noticed, too. In the next few games, the Aces saw a shift in how teams played them: more physical, more fearless. Players were no longer intimidated. They were emboldened. If Clark could walk into their house and outplay a key veteran, why couldn't they? Suddenly, the mystique around the Aces wasn't armored, was a target. This wasn't just about a highlight. It was a momentum shift, the kind that slowly chips away at a dynasty's edge. And then came the media firestorm. Sports talk shows replayed the clip of Clark cooking Plum on a loop. Debate panels argued whether the Aces were still the league's top team. Social media roasted them with memes and side-by-side comparisons. And worst of all, Caitlin Clark didn't even add fuel to the fire. Her silence made the embarrassment echo louder. For the first time in 2 years, the Aces looked vulnerable. And not just because of a single loss, but because someone had pierced the image they'd spent years crafting. Clark's play hadn't just shaken Plum, it had disrupted the energy of the entire team, and that disruption was about to spill into the rest of the league, where rookies were taking notes, and veterans were taking sides. What happened between Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Plum didn't just stay between them, it sent shockwaves through the entire WNBA. The divide between veterans and rookies, already quietly simmering beneath the surface, suddenly became impossible to ignore. Some of the league's biggest names started weighing in, and what they said revealed a league that's not just competitive, but divided. On one side were the old guard veterans who believed that respect must be earned through years of service, not a few viral moments. A'ja Wilson, though careful with her words, made a cryptic post on Instagram the day after the game. It read, "Crowns aren't given, they're taken." Fans quickly decoded the meaning, a subtle pushback against the idea that Clark should be seen as the new face of the league based on a single highlight. Another vet, known for her blunt takes, reportedly told a local reporter, "The media's writing a fairy tale. But this ain't college anymore. One highlight don't make you a legend." Those kinds of remarks only fueled the narrative that veterans weren't just dismissing Clark, they were threatened by her. But not all veterans agreed. Sylvia Fowles, a retired WNBA icon respected across generations, posted a simple yet powerful tweet: "The kid can hoop, let her cook." And with that, the floodgates opened. Younger players around the league, especially those who'd struggled for recognition, themselves began to show public support for Clark. Tweets, likes, and reposts rolled in, many using the viral video to celebrate a changing of the guard. Even players outside the WNBA, like NBA stars and NCAA legends, jumped in. Kevin Durant reposted the clip with flame emojis. Steph Curry commented on Clark's composure under pressure. And suddenly, what started as a small controversy had become the biggest debate in basketball. Is the league ready for someone like Clark to take the torch, even if it means breaking tradition? This controversy wasn't just about one play. It was about culture, about change. The WNBA, long proud of its tight-knit community and earned hierarchy, was facing an identity shift. The arrival of players like Clark, with massive followings and instant stardom, challenged the unwritten rules of how success should be earned. Some saw it as disrespectful. Others saw it as inevitable. And caught in the middle were players like Kelsey Plum, who were now being cast as villains in a story they didn't mean to start. The public wasn't interested in nuance. They had seen the footage, they had seen Clark cook, Plum, and they had picked a side. What no one realized at the time was how deep this fracture would go, because when rookies start outshining veterans, and fans rally behind the new face, it's not just a highlight moment, it's the start of a shift in power, and that shift was about to expose even more hidden tensions, especially within the Aces locker room. Behind the polished post-game interviews and the scripted press statements, something was unraveling inside the Las Vegas Aces locker room. Caitlin Clark's domination of Kelsey Plum wasn't just a blow to one player's pride it sent ripples through a team that had long prided itself on unity, dominance, and veteran swagger. But now, cracks were showing. Multiple sources close to the organization described the mood after the Clark incident as tense and off. Players who normally joked and hyped each other were quiet. Team meetings felt strained. A few insiders even suggested that some of the younger Aces players were hesitant to speak up, afraid to get caught in the crossfire between leadership trying to maintain order and a narrative spiraling out of control. And Kelsey Plum, she wasn't taking the viral humiliation well. By all accounts, Plum is a competitor. She plays with emotion, pride, and fire. But for the first time in a long time, her confidence appeared shaken. In practices following the game, reporters noticed she looked unusually distant. No smiles, no trash talk, just silence. Some teammates reportedly tried to lift her spirits, but others stayed out of the way. Unsure of how she might react, the worst part wasn't just the clip, it was how much attention it got. Every media outlet replayed it. Every sports show dissected it. And worst of all, even her own fans were questioning her leadership. Not because she made one bad defensive play, but because of how she handled it afterward. The shade she'd thrown at Clark earlier in the week suddenly looked like bitterness. And in a culture driven by perception, that shift was devastating. Coach Becky Hammon was left to play damage control. In a press conference following the game, she tried to refocus the narrative. "We've got a championship culture. We win. Together, we lose together," she said. But behind that calm front, the pressure was real. Hammon had a locker room full of proud veterans who were suddenly being overshadowed by a 22-year-old rookie from Iowa. The world was watching. To make matters worse, other teams started circling. Players from rival franchises began whispering what few dared say publicly: the Aces don't look the same. They weren't just reacting to Clark's moment, they were responding to how the Aces were handling it. The frustration, the silence, the passive-aggressive posts. It didn't look like strength. It looked like ego. This is the hidden danger of dominance. When a team sits at the top for too long, any sign of weakness, no matter how small, a feeding frenzy. And Clark hadn't just exposed a defensive lapse. She had pulled back the curtain on a team grappling with change, pride, and an unfamiliar feeling: vulnerability. Inside that locker room, the message was clear. The league was shifting. The spotlight was moving. And unless the Aces adapted quickly, the next rookie to come through might not just humiliate one player, they might dismantle the entire legacy. While the Aces were scrambling behind closed doors, Caitlin Clark was thriving in full view of the world. Her calm, confident response to the chaos only amplified her status. She didn't gloat. She didn't clap back. She just kept playing and winning. And with every no-look assist, logo 3, and composed post-game, quote, Clark wasn't just winning games, she was winning the narrative. The league that had once cautiously welcomed her was now being reshaped by her fans, analysts, and even former critics began shifting their tone. What started as she needs to prove herself turned into she's already a problem. Broadcasters couldn't ignore the numbers. Clark was putting up historic rookie stats, selling out arenas, and pulling in TV ratings the league hadn't seen in years. But more importantly, she was doing it with poised under scrutiny, under pressure, and under constant fire from some of the league's most respected veterans. The symbolism of her moment with Kelsey Plum wasn't lost on anyone. It wasn't just about one player getting crossed over. It was about the next generation forcing its way into the spotlight. For years, the WNBA had been dominated by a tight-knit group of stars who'd earned their place through battles, grind, and loyalty to the league when the cameras weren't rolling. But Clark represented something new: media savvy, collegiate fame, and undeniable skill packaged into a 22-year-old phenom with a laser focus and ice in her veins. That contrast triggered something deeper. This wasn't just about competition. It was about culture, about identity, about how the league sees itself, and how it wants to be seen. And as Clark continued to shine, more and more fans started tuning in not for the league as a whole, but for her. That shift made certain veterans uneasy. Some saw it as disrespect. Others saw it as necessary evolution. But all of them saw the writing on the wall. The WNBA's new era had begun, and Clark was driving it. You could see it in how other rookies started carrying themselves. With more confidence, more belief, Clark had opened the floodgates. Suddenly, it wasn't just her moment, it was their moment too. The old guard wasn't just facing a superstar. They were facing a movement. And for the veterans who had built the league from the ground up, that realization was tough to accept. Especially when it came from a player who wasn't asking for the torch, she was taking it. That's why the Plum moment mattered. It was a visual metaphor, a generational crossover, a split-second sequence that captured an entire shift in momentum, the rookie stepping back, launching a three, and watching it fall. While the veterans stumbled, grasping at air, the league would never be the same after that clip. Not because of the shot, but because of what it represented and the final blow. It was still coming. Clark wasn't done. Not by a long shot. If there was any doubt left about Caitlin Clark's impact, it vanished during her next matchup, one that felt less like a game and more like a reckoning. The Aces had been licking their wounds from the viral humiliation, while Clark continued her ascent with grace and grit. But when the Fever and Aces met again, the energy was different. Tense, personal. Everyone wanted to know, was that highlight moment a fluke? Or was it the beginning of something bigger? Clark answered that question in the most brutal way possible by dominating again. But this time, it wasn't just a clip or a single move. It was a full-blown dismantling. She opened the game with back-to-back threes, the second one drilled right in front of Kelsey Plum, who hesitated for just a split second on the switch. The crowd erupted, but Clark didn't even flinch. No celebration, no words, just a cold, surgical turn back to defense. And that was the tone for the entire night. Every time Plum was switched onto her, Clark didn't just attack, she exposed crossovers, step-backs, high Q passes that left defenders out of position and coaches shaking their heads. It wasn't just about scoring, it was about control. Clark ran the game like a conductor, and every time the Aces tried to adjust, she shifted gears and made them pay. By halftime, Clark had racked up double-digit points and assists. The Aces' lead scorer looked frustrated. Their bench looked lost, and Plum looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Every moment reminded fans of the original clip, the crossover, the embarrassment, but this was worse. This was prolonged, strategic, intentional. But the moment that truly broke the narrative came late in the third quarter. Clark brought the ball up in transition after a steal. She was moving fast, eyes scanning. Plum hustled back, trying to cut her off. Just as they met near the top of the key, Clark did it again, an ankle-snatching crossover that left Plum stumbling. But this time, she didn't go for the step-back three. She drove straight to the hoop, absorbed contact, finished the layup, and got the foul dot. And that was the final blow. The arena exploded. Fans rose to their feet. Clark, emotionless, walked to the line while Plum sat on the floor, staring in disbelief. Cameras zoomed in. Commentators were speechless. One simply said, "Wow, she's arrived." The replay went viral within minutes. Again, but this time, it wasn't just a rookie. Embarrassing a veteranette was a full-circle moment. A reminder that Clark hadn't just earned respect, she had taken it against the league's toughest team, against the loudest voices, and in front of the world after the game. When asked about the play, Clark remained calm. "I just took what "The defense gave me," she said. "No shade, no smugness, just business." And that was what made it all so devastating for the Aces, because they weren't just beaten, they were outclassed by someone who had every reason to gloat but chose not. The league felt the shift immediately. Headlines changed from "Can Clark hang with the pros?" to "Is Clark already the best point guard in the league?" Analysts rewrote their rankings, endorsements soared. Even veteran players who had stayed silent began showing public support, and the fans, they were all dashing in just a few games. Caitlin Clark had gone from overhyped rookie to generational disruptor, and the Aces, once untouchable, were left searching for answers. The final blow wasn't just about Plum falling, it was about an entire era falling with her, and from the ashes, a new one rising. What began as a single viral highlight became the symbol of something much bigger: a shift in power, a clash of eras, and the undeniable rise of a new face of the WNBA. Caitlin Clark didn't just humiliate Kelsey Plum with a crossover, she challenged the old guard's grip on the league, her poise, her silence. And her performance spoke louder than any press conference or social media post ever could. For the Aces, it was a wake-up call. For fans, it was a turning point. And for the league, it was a moment of reckoning. This wasn't just about talent, it was about identity. Clark's calm dismantling of one of the WNBA's toughest veterans exposed deeper tensions and forced the league to confront its future. Now, every game she plays feels like history unfolding in real time. Every crossover, every assist, every moment adds weight to a story that's far from over. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just arrive, she took over. And as the veterans scramble to adjust, one thing is clear: the league belongs to whoever wants it most. And right now, Clark wants everything.